Okay, well, it's 12:30, so I'm going to get started. Thank you, everyone, for coming. My name is Matt, but I'm more commonly known as Mountain Mage. I get cards signed for a living. It's my full-time job. I love cards signatures. I've been collecting them since 2013 when I went to my first GP in Orlando, or Miami, rather. And since then, it's just grown into a business for me, into a living. And I want to share some information about how to get your card signed, why you might want to, where you can do it, and let's start the presentation. So first, where and how can you get signatures? Obviously, you're at MagicCon, so you know about that one. So yeah, pretty much every Magic event these days is going to have at least a few artists. Some events like MagicCon are a great place to find many artists at the same time. The downside being, of course, the lines, but we'll get to that later. Um, and of course, the other main way is through the mail. Many artists can't or don't want to attend events, and many people cannot go to every event. So, what are the pros and cons of each of those? So, let's go over what you should do at an event and what you should not do at an event when getting your card signed. If there is an artist you know who's going to have a very long line, obviously that's going to be many of them. But for the big names, Chris Ron, Elena Danner, Rebecca Gay, you want to get into their lines as soon as possible. Some artists are going to have multiple lines, some for just merch. If you want just to buy merch, usually there's a separate line for that. You can just walk up to the front. So make sure you're not waiting an hour to buy a playmat. That would be awful. If you've sleeved your cards, definitely unsleeve them in advance because that's something the artist doesn't have time to do. Plus, they don't want to damage your cards. So make sure you get that done in advance before you get up to the artist if you do that in line. Definitely talk with the artist. Most artists they'll be able to talk while they're signing cards. You won't distract them, and this is a great way to meet the artists who make Magic so great. A lot of people get cards signed because they like the art. It makes sense. And the artists, they love talking with their fans. Ask them questions. Maybe not like, what's your favorite art you've done? I know that's a hard one. Or like, what's your favorite Magic art? But just chat with them, ask them how the day's been, things like that. They like to be engaged. Uh, Many artists these days are offering a large variety of signature types. You've got your classic, just a single signature, nice and easy. Then you've got a double signature, known as a shadow signature. And then there's sometimes options beyond that. There's rainbow signatures. Chris Seaman has a specialty signature where he'll actually make a signature that matches the style of the card. Like if you give him a lightning greaves, he'll sign with like a lightning style. It's really cool. Um, Obviously, the higher up you get on how fancy they are, the more expensive they're going to be. So make sure you budget appropriately, and definitely bring cash just in case. Some artists prefer it. Most artists will have options for PayPal, Venmo, etc. But bring some cash just in case, and better yet, don't bring a lot of 20s because then that might require the artist to make change and that wastes their time. But they'll do it if they need to. So no worries about that. But yeah, just in case. Here's some things not to do. Don't bring too many cards at once. If you want an artist to sign 40 cards, consider taking a second trip. Obviously, if it's in the line. Obviously, if it's an artist who you waited 3 hours to get, then maybe that's not feasible. But if possible, especially at a smaller event, at a MagicCon, that might not be feasible because you can't wait another 3 hours. It's just not happening. Some artists may even limit how many cards they're willing to sign at a time. Not everybody, but sometimes that'll happen. For example, John Avon, I believe he has it capped to like only 4 cards. You can only get 4 cards signed. So don't don't bring a bunch of cards for him if you see him at an event. Uh, don't bring cards as people are packing up for the day. Because if you see them cleaning up their table, don't be like, hey, can I get a signature real quick? They still might do it, but that doesn't mean you should do it. Because it's a little bit rude to them. But you know, going towards the end of the day is a good idea. That's when lines are a little bit quieter. Obviously, during the day, that's when the big rush is. But if you see them packing up or they're about to leave for a break, don't bring any cards to get signed at that time. If you are commissioning an artist for an artist proof or an altar or something like that, something that's not generally done at MagicCon because they don't have the time, but if you're going to a smaller event, SCGCon, GlowStuffCon, and you're and you're getting a commission, don't forget to pick it up. Or at the very least, give them your name and phone number before you leave, because a lot of times they'll say, okay, you can pick this up on tomorrow or Sunday. Don't forget it, because sometimes I've seen plenty of times where an artist will have a commission, they're like, I don't know whose this is, and they never came to pick it up. So don't forget to do that. I would say don't shake the artist's hand in general. Everyone's trying to stay healthy and safe, especially with all the people here. So, limit physical contact if possible. But, uh, use your own discretion. Okay, so that's everything about advanced signatures. Nothing super complicated. You go to an artist, you get your card signed. Great. What about getting your card signed through the mail? That's where I come in. That's where you can mail directly to the artist, and that's where it gets a little bit more complicated, but not much more. So there's two ways you can go about getting signatures through the mail. Most artists work with an agent, such as myself. There are also some artists who will accept mail to them directly, or sometimes they'll do both. Generally speaking, if they do both, then either is fine, but for convenience sake, going through an agent is typically best for the artist. So there's sort of like three rules I say that there are for mailing your cards to an artist. You want to be patient because a lot of artists live overseas, or they have their own freelance work or their own jobs to take care of first, family. So patience. Some artists may finish in as quick as 2 weeks. Some artists could take 6 months. So it's just all part of the experience. On the plus side, at least you're not waiting 6 months in line, so you can just be happy about that at least. So prudence. Magic cards are expensive. Don't mail anything you cannot afford to lose. Accidents happen. I have a very high success rate, but I do not have a perfect success rate. Thankfully, it's like in the 99%. I consider myself lucky, but I feel like people don't give credit to the postal system as much as they should, because it does work most of the time, but it doesn't always work. So if you're mailing Power 9 or Mishra's Workshops through the mail, as some people did to me for this event, for the folios, just be aware of that. Insure your packages if you feel that's necessary. And then lastly, patience again, because it needs to be repeated. It really can take quite a long time. It is definitely the exception rather than the rule, but I have had artists take multiple years. Don't ask me why. It just happens sometimes. Sometimes part of it was the pandemic. Maybe they had other reasons, but generally speaking, that's the exception. You're going to get your cards back 3 to 6 months at most, I'd say, and less if they're in the U.S. I work with a lot of artists overseas. Shipping time can vary greatly. All right, so let's talk about mailing artists directly. So the first thing you want to do is check their website. A lot of artists will have, maybe not a lot of artists, we'll say some artists. Some artists will have information on their website on how to mail them cards. Rebecca Gay, for example, she's here at this event. This is her first time going to a Magic event, maybe ever. But she has all this time signed cards through the mail. Maybe you knew, maybe you didn't. They may have specific rules. Going back to Rebecca, she has a strict rule of you send exactly 20 cards and you pay exactly $50, and then she'll mail them back to you. I would say, unless it says specifically not to, you should always ask the artist first whether you can mail it or not. It's just common courtesy. And like I said, if it says it already, hey, you can just mail me your cards, you don't need to email me, that's fine too, then you can just send. If you live in the U.S. and you are mailing to a U.S. artist, or if you live in the same country as your artist would say, include a self-addressed stamped envelope. That is what a SACE is. The easiest way to do that is to use a shipping website like Pirate Ship. I'm not sponsored by them, but you should use that website if you ship anything with any sort of frequency. And you can print out a return label to include with the package. If not, at the very least, you should include an envelope for them to send the cards back. If you are international, or if you're mailing to an international artist, definitely discuss shipping options first. Generally speaking, if they know about signing, if they're relatively, they've been around for a while, they'll know what shipping methods work best for them, and you can discuss payment with them. There's also the new, with all the tariffs, things might cost money, and make sure that both of you understand who will be paying import fees, if anything. Yeah, there's to be prepared to pay customs fees, especially nowadays. I would say that again, unless the artist's website or the artist himself specifically says otherwise, I would send a marker because sometimes you'll get cards back and they'll be signed in ballpoint pen. It hasn't happened in a while, but you never know. So yeah, send them a Sharpie. They'll appreciate it. Uh, if you need, if you have a specific request, maybe you want them to write your name on the card, like to so and so. Make sure you include that in the instructions with your card in the package, not just in the email, because sometimes they'll forget about the email. They'll sign them and ship them out, and then they'll forget. They're busy. So yeah, include detailed instructions if necessary. If it's just like a black signature, include a black Sharpie. They'll figure it out. And of course, once again, be patient because these things take time, and it is definitely not even close to being number one on their priority list. All right, so mailing through an artist agent. There are a few, not a ton. There is myself. I'm at the top. You can see my website's there. And there is another guy who's actually here as well. He's sitting at Doug Schuler and Dan Frazier's table. His name's Mark Ronowitz. He is the person who sort of inspired me to get into this line of work. And so I consider him like kind of a mentor. Known him for a while. Definitely check him out. Between the two of us, we represent probably like, let me think, probably like 400 or 500 artists. So chances are your favorites work with one of us. Not all of them, but a good amount. There's another person. His name's Ilya. Very nice guy. He lives in Russia. He works with a lot of the Eastern European artists because that can be a bit dicey to mail to. So some artists in Poland, some artists in Russia. He's your guy. If you don't want to mail your cards directly to Russia, I also partner with Ilya to send cards to him. But once again, there's another guy who's here at the event. He's at Justine Jones's table. His name is Donnie Caltrider. He only deals with artist proofs. Does anyone here not know what an artist proof is? Okay, great. Everyone knows what an artist proof is. So if you love artist proofs, Donnie is your guy. I also sell artist proofs, but that's Donnie's entire thing. So chances are he'll know who to contact if you want the right artist proofs. And then lastly is Jerry Trill. He operates on Facebook only, much like Mark. And he works with only a few artists, but some big names. Kev Walker, big fan favorite. People love Kev's work. Jerry's the only person who works with him, so definitely check his website out or his Facebook page. All right, so I'm going to go. Everything you see, this mostly applies to Mark as well, and to Jerry, but this is specifically for me. I'm the only one who actually has a website. I try and make it as easy as possible. So yeah, you pay for the signatures on my website. You will mail the cards to me. And then once I announce that the cards are back, you pay for return shipping. It's very easy, very stress-free, other than obviously having to wait for your cards. But yeah, that's all it takes. All the signature options are listed. All the color options are listed. I'm very proud of my website. Check it out. I believe Mike has the. Nope. Okay, that's fine. So what are the pros and cons of name search? Because obviously I'm biased. It's my job. I want you to mail cards to me. But what are the pros and cons of mailing to an agent? So as a pro, it's a one-stop shop. As I mentioned, between Mark and I, we cover almost 500 artists, maybe more. If you want to, because think about it, if you have to mail to 50 different artists, shipping will add up, as opposed to one person, one shipping cost, and then return. Actually, yeah, you pay shipping to get to me, and then you pay me to return the cards to you. Yeah, so lots of artists and relatively cheap shipping, and also just less work because mailing, especially having to fill out customs forms and stuff like that, it can be a pain. We take care of all of that for you. We have many years of experience. Mark's been doing this, I don't even know how long, and I've been doing this professionally since 2016. So not only do we have a lot of knowledge and resources at our disposal, we also have a lot of contacts. We're always adding new artists. I've got artists who had their first cards or very recent, like in Final Fantasy, for example. So if you love Final Fantasy, some cards from that set are already signable, which is great. Yeah. So and also I keep everybody up to date. If I have a big schedule, it says cards are being signed, cards are on the way back. I have the cards, so you can always keep track of that through there. All right. So what are the cons of mailing to an agent? Well, it's more expensive. I need to be compensated for my time, and it is a lot of work. As I said, it's my full-time job. It's not part-time. It is definitely 40 hours a week. Sometimes on weekends, if there's a con coming up like Vegas, I was doing some late night work overtime to get ready for this event. So yes, it adds up. Magic is an expensive hobby. Signature is another expense on top of that. So it can add up. So keep that in mind. Again, budget effectively. You don't get to talk with the artists at all. People love talking with the artists. Obviously, that might appeal to you. Maybe you don't want to mail to an agent because you want that interaction, whether it's at an event. I know a lot of people who are like, I only want to get cards signed at events so I can meet the artists. That's great. There's nothing wrong with that philosophy, and more power to you. And I say potentially longer wait because obviously at a con you're going to get them back right away. But if you mail to an artist directly, the time could be more or less or the same. So also, if you want all, like for example, if you mail to an agent 20 artists, each artist is going to take a different amount of time to come back. So there might be a longer wait, but you are at least, you can always request shipments on demand. So if there's a few artists back, you can get those back if you want. All right. And what are just the pros and cons of just getting cards signed in general? Well, again, it's incredibly biased, but it's really cool because Magic already provides so many different ways to personalize what your deck looks like. Maybe you like extended art. Maybe you like alternate art. Maybe you like only retro foils. I know a lot of people love retro cards, myself included. But what can you do past that? That's where signatures come in. There's also alters, artist proofs, things like that. But signatures are definitely the easiest and cheapest of those three things. Alters and proofs can be, hundreds of dollars for one. There's an increased value to collectors. Now, I say collectors because most vendors still consider signed cards to be damaged. So if you try and sell your signed cards to a vendor, you'll probably get less money. However, there are literally thousands of signed collectors in the world. And chances are, if you post your signed cards there, someone will buy on eBay, in the various Facebook groups and the Discord groups. People buy and sell cards in my Discord, for example. So yeah, it does increase the value. Now, artists like RK Post, Eric Deschamps, who have signed who knows how many cards, it's not going to add a lot. Maybe it won't add anything, but it will not detract from the value of the card. Unless they really messed up their signature somehow, I don't know. So it's a little bit of an investment. That's not why I get cards signed, but some people consider it an investment. And get a little piece of Magic history. Does anyone think that Magic would be what it is today without the art that it has? Who knows? Mechanics of the game are solid. It's my favorite game in the world. I've played hundreds of games, and I think Magic is the best game in the world. But I think the art gives it that extra edge. If you look at who's winning fantasy art, competitions, I guess you could say, it's consistently Magic artists. And there's a reason for that. And that's that Wizards goes out of their way to find great artists. How often do you look at a card and be like, I don't like this art? Obviously, art is subjective, but I would imagine for most people, it's very rare. Now, maybe not every piece of art is going to wow you, but it's good quality stuff. And you get the artist signature. Now, there are some artists who have passed away. Christopher Rush, Greg Hildebrand passed late last year. Those are now, irreplaceable memorabilia. Whether for yourself to be like, wow, they're such great artists, iconic artists, and now you have them. They're yours. You can play with them. You can frame them. You can slab them. Whatever you want. But it just makes your collection that much more cool, interesting, valuable, whatever appeals to you. What are the cons? Well, sometimes you can't read what your own card says. That's fun. Some artists use a very thick marker. Some artists have a very large signature that might cover the art and you can't read what it says. That just comes with the territory. Thankfully, that's what Spratfall is for, or whatever your app of choice is. It can be expensive. As I already mentioned, it adds up. Artists across the board are raising their prices. If you went to a MagicCon 2 years ago, not every artist would be charging $5 and $10 for a signature, but most artists are charging $5 and $10 now at events. Sometimes that'll also carry into mail-in, sometimes it won't. So definitely check prices if you're trying to save money. is it cheaper to mail this way or that way, or how do you want to get your cards signed? But as I mentioned, it's also a bit of an investment. You spend $3, $5, $10 on a signature. 10 years from now, it's worth $50. That's not a huge rate of return, but as I mentioned, Christopher Rush, Greg Hildebrand, those cards are worth way more now. Now, again, you should not get your cards signed with the expectation that they will be worth more someday because the artist passed away, but that's just something to keep in mind. Here's another thing. A lot of my customers tell me that they buy extra copies of cards now because they know that the cards they send me might be gone for a while. Might be. So if you're a person who's plays competitive Magic and you use your deck often, you might need to proxy. You might need to borrow cards. Something to think about. And then just a little end of the presentation. I've got some little examples from my collection. I like oversized cards. I don't know what appeals to me about them, but they're so wacky. And I don't know if anyone here is familiar with Vanguard. It was very old. Geez, I don't remember when it came out, but it sort of like modified your life total and your starting hand size, whatever. But so there's I'm probably one of the only people in the world with a fully signed Vanguard set, so that's pretty cool to me. Bottom left, same thing. I have the original Archenemy schemes all signed, and then just something kind of wacky. Like as I mentioned, a lot of artists don't go to events. Like for example, if an artist has 5 cards to their name, do you think it's worth it for them to go to an event? Probably not, unless the card is like an all-star in some format where like you're gonna want to get it signed. It's not worth it for them to go. So how do you get cards signed from them? Well, that's where people like me come in here. So if you want, and I definitely go after a lot of secret lair artists because I know people like that, myself included. So there's Roman Fonek. He's in Germany. He did a secret lair with some kind of wacky art. And yeah, so any questions? If you have a question, you can come. There's a mic. I believe it's off, but yeah, if anyone has any questions, feel free to go to the mic. Or we can just sort of end it here and just collaborate in the middle because it's not like a ton of people here anyway. But yes, thank you for coming. Hopefully I piqued your interest in signatures. Some of you, I believe, have already gotten some signatures. Congratulations on getting through the line because it's a long wait. And yeah, thank you.